All right, guys, we have some very cool guests coming on to the show this afternoon, this evening. If you are fans of tabletop gaming horror movies, and most predominantly for our audience, as you have listened to us quite frequently discuss Halloween Horror Nights, the pre-hype, the going to, the post-hype each year, you will be super stoked to listen to this interview with our guests. We got Nate Stevenson, Jacob McAlister, and Patrick Braillard coming on. Man, too excited, I can't even pronounce. Patrick Braillard is coming on the show right now to discuss their newest project that you can find on Kickstarter right now. It is called Oh the Horror. It is what looks like, from looking at the Kickstarter, Cards Against Humanity meets Build Your Own Horror Story, guys. Like, is that the vibe? That am I right with that? Like, that tabletop fill in the blank, um, best player gets the point for round type, fun HHN vibe type tabletop game you guys have created here.
Absolutely. I think that one of the unique hallmarks of tabletop gaming like that, that gives the crowd that's doing it, and the assorted group of doing it, not only a set of rules that we've set down as far as the Kickstarter, and you can read them there, but also the free form to be able to expand their house rules and how they play this game. And I think that that's something that is so much fun. First, I just want to say before we dive in anything more formal, we're so thankful to be here. We're so thankful to get the opportunity to talk about it, and we're thankful for the opportunity for people to hear more about our Kickstarter and to hopefully come in and back us, and so that we can produce this game in mass and be able to share our own unique, horrific, hilarious take. I think on the world, and I think that. I think you're right. I think that there are unique qualities about the game that set it apart from anything that's come before it. But there are a lot of different interesting nods to gaming that we even knew of growing up, that have found its way into the game. And I think that people are going to be uniquely surprised with what we have to show in Know the Horror.
It's interesting in a year like what this year has been, and we obviously don't need to mention the effects of 2020 any more than that. But, Patrick and Nate have worked, with HHN Orlando and HHN Hollywood here in California to us. To use the word used to is a wrong way to put it, but HHN Orlando to me has always had like this special sense to it, just because we're not able to go every year. So when we travel across country and we get to see it, it really is like going to that first time at LA all over again. And you guys putting together this game coming off of the haunt season that you had, where Patrick, you worked on your own indie haunt, which, I mean, I was cursing you with good intention, in the sense that you announced opening that thing the weekend after we were in Florida.
Oh no!
And I was like, oh man. And now that November and we're moving into holiday season, which is perfect timing for you guys to launch this, as there's many horror fans out there that want something horror and fun for Christmas to give. And but I got to assume, just with the detail that went into Jacob's artwork, and then the intricacy of just in the cards that you guys show and that you've posted on Twitter and in the Kickstarter, checking out some of the type cards and stuff that you can get a peek at. Like, you guys have been planning this, it would seem, for a little while. Yeah.
Nate, go ahead and.
Yeah. So this is something that has been on my mind, and something that we've been working for a while. Game night is huge at the Stevenson house.
Right.
It always has been. We've got game nights that we have with my son, and he's 16 now. We've been having game nights since he was tiny. It actually turned into a game weekend where we just do like a whole tournament where we'd play numerous games, but parts of numerous games, and then add all the points and who won the tournament kind of thing. And we have these gaming nights with our friends too, kind of like this. Every Wednesday, I'll get together with friends all over the United States, and we'll come together and have a game night. So gaming's just huge for us. And then obviously there's this other side of my personality that's been doing horror and in horror for so long, and I love creating within that genre. So it's something that's been rolling around, for a long time and trying to think of. And I pitched it to Patrick, and we started working on it, and almost immediately it started to take form into something, because we wanted to make a horror game, but we really wanted to make something in the end that's hilarious and fun and a party game, and something that brings people together and has people laughing, but still has plenty of horror aspect to it, and so it is something that we've been working through and on pretty feverishly in the past few months, but something that's been kind of rolling around and we've been thinking through for probably over a year. So
it's it is something interesting, and Nate just hit on it, that having worked together for several years in a collaborative nature in building up not only the IP houses for Horror Nights, but also the original stories as well, which is something that is unique to the Orlando, scene. Mm-hmm. The having the opportunity to be able to do that in a collaborative nature in the work that we did together, there's a shorthand that's there. And so immediately after deciding that this is the route that we're going to take with it, the ideas fly very, very fast. And it was like old times. It was like, okay, if we're going to do this, let's go. And it literally opened up the floodgates. And when when you have a great collaborative partnership with not only Nate, but also Jacob, as far as I feel, is that you start to understand in that process that if it feels like it's coming too easy, you're exactly right where you need to be. If it feels like it's moving and the water is just flowing, exactly where, that you're in that sweet spot. Also, you want to get to a point where you really don't truly remember whose idea was what at what time. It might start with something that Jacob says or Nate says or I say, that then all of a sudden gets into a text thread, and all of a sudden there's 8 texts that have gone by, and we've completely morphed the idea of whatever it might be, whether it be a killer card, a victim card, or one of the methods of death card. That has completely changed not only our perception of the game as far as one hand would be concerned, but also ideas that could end up changing the entire gameplay of the game in the future. And having that shorthand collaboratively now with Jacob on board, it really is a wonderful marriage of the three of us trying to do just what Nate said, which is to create the absolute best hilarious horror game we possibly can.
And now, honestly, now that we know how the horror game, how the game works, now we have a really good platform for exactly how it goes. We're creating all the time. I'll get cards from, card ideas from Jacob and Patrick at 8 a.m. and I'll get them at midnight or 1. You know what I mean? It'll pop off text, and we'll start going back and forth. So yeah, we're just kind of really having a good time creating it.
And Jacob, your art, man, is highly entertaining just to look at in general. The aesthetic to it, where it has like this almost like Peanuts level friendliness, but then they're doing like these like dark and twisted things, is got a comical, dark sense of humor to it that is pretty rad, man.
Thanks, man. I like that juxtaposition of having something that looks kid friendly until you pull the card up to your face and realize that it's not.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite card so far that you have drawn, one that stands out to you as like, if you were playing this game down the road and you drew that drawing, you'd be like, yeah, that's a badass one.
Omar the Orderly, or Orderly Omar. How are we naming him? Orderly Omar.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Orderly Omar.
hands down my favorite.
Right on.
Yeah, that's just a perfect card. The drawing is amazing, and the actual quip of the card that he wants your respect, but he also wants to smell your toes after you die. It's so off-putting and interesting, and yeah, I think we all kind of have a soft place in our heart for Orderly Omar.
We definitely do. And that's part of the fun about the game is that there are going to be 100 killers and 100 victims, and then there is a deck of 200 methods of death that we're going to put towards the players. And what's wonderful about it is that you might get a killer and a victim that, frankly, because of the tropes that they're a part of, you would never associate together in a horror movie. But with the players all putting in exactly what kind of method of death they've got, you might find yourself going, wow, that would make a really great horror film. Or, good God, I hope I never have the opportunity to see something like that, because that would be something you can't unsee. And that's what's wonderful about the game. And also, based on, the Kickstarter that we've got going on, because we've got various levels of rewards, the top 2 tiers of the reward system are built so that somebody could, if they gave a certain number, could end up becoming a victim or a killer in the game forever.
Oh, right on.
So Jacob would actually end up drawing them as a victim or a killer, and they would be in the base deck for the history of the game. So that's something.
I'm just going to put it out there now. I will draw them unapologetically. You're going to be in this deck. I'm going to draw you, and it's going to be great.
And that's
I'm going to have fun drawing whoever pays to be drawn into this deck, because it's going to stay in there, and it's
going to be worthwhile.
We'll make sure they're happy.
But they don't get revisions.
But you know what? When you sit down in the park and you pay for someone to do your caricature, you're not always happy with what you get, but you paid for it, so.
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting to hear you guys, Patrick and Nate, thinking about you guys coming up with the haunted houses, and listening to you, Patrick, how you're describing how you think as you create. I'm curious, because when we're writing a script to a film, after learning how to do it in an actual proper setting in educational, they kind of teach you to write as if you are, you're seeing it in your mind's eye, like to write like within what you're going to be able to execute at the time. Like if I have a budget of $300, you can go write a script about, World War Z, and that's, all well and good, but you're not going to do it for $300. But you could write a script that you could execute a zombie movie for $300. So now whenever I write, like, I can't help it. I see it like I'm blocking out an actual movie. I imagine the same is like when you guys are doing treatments for HHN mazes, like you're seeing like, okay, how do we build this? How do we design this? So best flow of traffic or best scare, lighting, all that good stuff goes into it. So when you're creating these cards, are you seeing it in the tense of these characters inside a haunted house or inside a horror film? Like, would you picture Orderly Omar, like live and in the flesh in front of you when that vision poked into your brain from conception?
Well, I will now.
Yeah. That's it. He's the first vignette in our anthology movie. I think that what's wonderful about the collaboration between Nate, Jacob, and myself, and what's wonderful about the theming of the game, as well as of how I think people will take it in, is that we have decidedly made the game trope first, and it's very trope forward. So even though Orderly Omar might not have made his way into a film as of yet, there are disturbing orderlies within film and within horror movies.
Right.
You know, Carly the camp counselor. You know, there's the over-sexualized camp counselor that immediately gets offed in the first 10 minutes or the first reel of the film is something that everybody knows. And if we can somehow create our own way of showing that, as well as giving unique ways for that individual to die, then it becomes a really nice, not only discussion between the people that are playing, but also something really, really fun and we think hilarious in how they go about interpreting or choosing that person's death. And I think that to your point, you know, when you're trying to envision people, if I were to envision that person, that's all well and good. But I can tell you just from the experiences that we've had with both Nate and I throwing things back and forth and then giving it to Jacob, it always turns out better with Jacob. Like the words start in one place, but until you get not only the marriage of the words and the art, that's when it really truly takes off. And I think that, you know, it's a lot like somebody who is writing a script or somebody who is writing a treatment for Horror Nights. Until you get the craftsmen and the designers and the cinematographer and, you know, you finally start to watch dailies, you don't truly understand exactly what you wrote or how it will affect people. I can tell you from experience as far as HHN is concerned, and I think Nate can probably back me up in this, there is nothing like the feeling of toiling over a treatment for 5 or 6 months and the day you walk in and the walls are up. Because you immediately go, holy shit, they actually built it again. And it's something that is humbling and it's something that you never get tired of seeing because and it happens dozens of times every single year.
Yeah.
Because every single year that event turns itself over. And that was something I never got tired of. But when you're talking about the game, that's also something that I think is infectious with us, is that we're always trying to figure out a way to kind of tweak gameplay during the course of people playing. So when you look at our Kickstarter page and you go there to back us, because you're all going to do that. When you go to the Kickstarter page to back us, you're going to see that there are multiple instances in which not only do we mess with the player from our specialty cards like Death Itself or Guardian Angel cards, but there's also the openness to create house rules in how you go about playing. Because you want people to have that fun of being able to manipulate the game to their own desires and make it their own. You know, I mean, we've all grown up playing games, whether it be card games or board games or whatnot. And you always have, like, who here did not play Monopoly and have a different set of rules in your house and you'd have to go over to somebody's house and go, okay, how do you guys play?
There's always rules, yeah.
What's free parking like? I mean, if I just say free parking, everybody's got a different damn rule for free parking. And that's the wonderful part about our game is that, yeah, you can have, you know, the standard set rules where, you know, death itself causes you to do X, but what if in your house rules, death itself focuses something else, like something else happens, or it becomes a drinking game. And if it's death itself and you pull death itself, you have to pound your drink. Like, who knows what the rules are? It's malleable. It's adaptable.
Everybody write that death itself rule down. Who's listening to this or watching this? We just gave you the first one.
I mean, the first house rule. I mean, honestly, you know, to that, write us, let us know, tell us what your house rules are. We'd love to know how people are responding to the game once it's made. But in order for it to be made, you got to go to Kickstarter and you got to back us.
My God, can you imagine like a first ever like Oh My Horror virtual invitational and we host a tournament online?
Oh yeah, man, that'd be fun. And we welcome all that. I mean, you know, anybody that has those after the game's made, if they find some funny way they play or some fun, you know, throw it our way, and we'll put it up somewhere so people can take a look at it and go, oh, you know. And we do have plans. You know, we've already talked about plans for expansion and all that kind of stuff. I mean, this could certainly work into a digital platform where people can literally sit there and play on their phones and things. You know, this might be the next, you know, way we hope. The next big thing while people are waiting in line for HHN or something, they're, you know, sitting there playing our game on their phone or something. So we have lots of plans down the road. But right now we're just, we're trying to focus on getting the original game out. And then, right at the top, it's, house rules welcome. Like, absolutely use these cards to laugh and have fun with your friends and blow off some steam and have a night of it. However they, we'll put some rules. Because again, like I said, everyone in my house is very competitive. So you can believe there's going to be one specific set of rules that if you come to the Stevenson house, you will have to play by. But other than that, you're going to be totally fine to do whatever you want at your home, with these cards. And each individual card is so cool. Just to kind of go back to what you were talking about thinking through these cards and stuff. That's one of the things that really started being kind of cool to me, is that, like, it's fun and it's funny, but each time you pull a victim and each time you pull a killer, you match these two up, and that becomes its own tiny little movie. You know what I mean? It's this tiny little story, almost like a little short story of, oh my gosh, how is this guy going to kill, this guy or girl going to kill this victim, And then you got all these cards that you can kind of finish the story with. So in that way, when we are creating it, we are thinking of all the different ways these can go together and how they could match up and just be funnier and funnier, I think we ended up changing our Kickstarter page to a couple different, a killer and a victim. One is a nun, and the other one is a CrossFit trainer, because we thought that was so funny, that a nun is killing a CrossFit trainer, and then she kills him with a 12-speed vibrator. So we love that, because we're like, we don't know, what story is that telling? We don't know. Was it hers? Was it his? There's so many questions, and it's wonderful. And
I don't need to, for that movie, I don't need to see the third act. I want to see the first act.
Yeah.
Like, I want to figure out what the inciting incident is to get them to that point.
Yeah, but every single one of them, to answer your question, Jimmy, every single little scenario is its own little story, and that's what we think is so killer about this, because at its base, Patrick and I are storytellers. That's what we do. And so this is a way to tell a million little stories. You know what I mean? So it's pretty cool.
I was thinking about, getting to talk to you guys today, and I'd be kicking myself if I didn't ask you one question that I got. And it's not the question that, we listen to a ton of HHN, our haunt podcasts, that get to, interview you guys ahead of Halloween Horror Nights through the Universal Media stuff. And so to ask you guys the questions that you answer about creativity and, the characters and stuff, podcasts like, Chronicles of Halloween Horror Nights, or Haunters podcast, or Haunt Scene with Johnny Bravo do a great job of doing that. I wanted to ask you guys, coming into, knock on wood, the entertainment business at some point here, having just graduated school, when you guys are working for a company like Universal and you're putting forth these original ideas, what is that pitch process like compared to like what I would imagine the movie business is? Do you guys, do you put together like a tagline first and then write your treatment from that tagline? Or do you come up with like, okay, the haunt is going to be centered around, an abandoned drive-in, B-movie cinema thing, and we're going to do like 4 or 5 movies in a couple rooms. Now let's, come up with our original concepts to fill in those blanks. What do you guys like to do as creators of haunts first?
That is, wow. You got 30 or 40 days to talk, because it's a loaded question. But the answer, and the answer is going to seem trite. The answer is really going to seem trite. It depends. In Orlando, because you have not only original content, but also you have intellectual properties, people believe that they're two different entities. And honestly, they're not. Intellectual property houses are still original houses because they don't exist outside of what we are able to create in a 360-degree process. and experience for the guests. And we still have to tell that story in a different way than even the creators of those stories were wanted to bring to light. I can tell you that none of the houses, none of the experiences, and none of the and it's kind of funny. Our card game is very similar. None of those experiences or houses would exist without the three-legged stool of story, character, and environment. And our card game is really killer, victim, and third act. And that's really and it's based on those because that's the strongest possible way to be able to tell their story. And if you don't have a compelling story, and if you don't have a compelling character and a compelling environment for people to walk through, it's not interesting for them to spend their hard-earned money to come and experience that. Much like if we didn't do our due diligence, which I hope that we have, and I believe that we have on Oh the Horror, you don't, unless we have done that due diligence, I don't believe that it's worth people's hard-earned money to come out and pay for the game, which I firmly believe that going to the Kickstarter page of Oh the Horror is something that they should do, because I think that they'll realize very quickly upon opening it just how much attention to detail has been paid in the same respect that we had while we were at the event and working for the event. We think through everything diligently with that in mind, wanting to tell the best absolute story. And granted, to Nate's point, you might have a killer and a victim that are very strange, like that nun CrossFit trainer combo is a really odd one. But you also want to try to fashion kills that for a fact are going to be just random enough to elicit somebody to laugh. And that's what we're after. We're after somebody's reaction to the game being either so horrific or nasty or gross or gory that they can't help but bring themselves to laughing. And I think that while the point of a live event, like we've built over the last decade plus, was to elicit screams and elicit that feeling of doom as you're walking in, or the anxiety of not wanting to go in first, or wanting to hold on to your friends, for dear life as you make your way through. That should translate in the game to people wanting to get together in groups and play with each other, be able to, bounce ideas off of one another, debate things, and come up with their own set of rules for how they do so.
Does that trip you out to say that here you are, you've created, you spent, like you just said, over a decade to create, these products to elicit the screams and the terror, and now you've created this fun product to enlist joy and getting together and love, like
I would,
stuff.
We used to joke around, and I know the guys have heard me say this before. We used to joke around all the time that we're philanthropists. When you're in the haunt business, you truly are a philanthropist, because the first thing that happens when you scream in a haunt is either you laugh or your friends laugh at you. But either way, people are enjoying themselves. It's an escape. There's a cathartic release that happens amongst the people who go to experience haunts that they seek out. Like, there is no reason why in the evolution of mankind anybody should put themselves into a seemingly life-threatening situation, and yet people sign up in mass and spend money to go into these situations in which there's a perceived threat. It's a psychological need for us to want to remind ourselves how good it is to be alive. And I think that now more than ever, especially with the current, year and the circumstances that we've all been facing, this is a chance for people to escape. This card game gives people an opportunity. If you're looking at it in the most positive light possible, not people just being bludgeoned by a 12-speed vibrator. You have the opportunity truly to have people escape and have people breathe and have fun with one another. And especially, it's for everybody that's an adult, but especially for those people who will understand the small idiosyncrasies that we throw in because we're horror fans first.
And truly, I can see from the perspective of like, oh, you were scaring people, but now you're making them laugh. But truly, at the base of anything that we've created, it's about getting people together and them laughing and having a good time. I mean, if you go to the streets of any haunt, You're going to see people walking from house to house or experience to experience, laughing with their friends, having fun with their friends, making fun of how that guy jumped. You know what I mean? And don't get us wrong, the cards themselves are going to be disturbing. You know what I mean? But,
Yeah.
But and then that's what's brilliant about Jacob's artwork is that you'll pick up the card and it kind of has this, this feel of like, oh, it's kind of, it feels almost like you might be looking at a kid's game or some sort of cartoon type thing, and then you bring it up and see what's going on, and you realize just how horrific that scene is. It's just great combination. But there's still plenty of horror and plenty of disturbing shit in every single card. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, we're doing the same thing. We're bringing people together to let go of the stuff they deal with in a day and just be with their friends and be with their family and have a great time. And that runs through everything that we've ever been involved in.
Yeah. To Nate's point, there definitely have been cards that he and I have shared together that we've had to pull back from the edge because our horror edge is still there. Our ideas are they're still nasty, they're still filthy, they're still horrific. In fact, that's what the game is centered on. We just want to make sure that we also have that opportunity to make people laugh and enjoy themselves, not just make them sick.
An inside view. Really, it's I'm on this side and Patrick's on this side, trying to take it as terribly gross and far as he can, and I'm trying to pull this way, and then Jacob, this wonderful person in the middle, that's just me. You know what I mean? So it's a wonderful collaborative group, but we have the far end of each spectrum. You know what I mean? That's not gross enough, and that's going. You've gone too far. People will stop playing the game because of that.
I'm firmly on the side of the spectrum that wants people to picket our game. And
there was one specific card that Patrick sent, and I genuinely almost threw up in my mouth a little bit, and I was like, that's. And then I laughed for a real long time, and then I was like, I don't know. Wait.
that card will be in the game eventually.
I was gonna say you guys got to do like the Patrick edition or the Patrick pack, like add on like 50 of Patrick's.
Great idea.
But now you can say yes to.
Yeah, we've got all sort of great sorts of great ideas for expansion packs. I think one of them, a great idea for expansion pack is like, this pack just goes too far. You know what I mean? So if you're into that, get it and put it in your game. But if you're not into that, don't.
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier that on the top tiers of the reward system on the Kickstarter, the horror game. If you go look that up on the Kickstarter, the top tiers are victim and killer. If you give enough, you can become a victim and a killer permanently inside the game. But there are other tiers, and one of those tiers, to Nate's point, is an expansion pack called the Folklore. Where we have the opportunity to add some mythical creatures and some ways of dying that are nice and nasty. But also to that point, I think that maybe we do an the Gorer.
I like it.
I'm saying. Yep, that just happened.
Oh, the Gorer.
But I will. That's a workshop. It's a thing in progress. But the wonderful part about it, that we mentioned a little bit earlier about the adaptable gameplay. So the way the game is structured is that there is 100 of the killer, 100 of the victim, and then there's the methods of the death that everybody gets an opportunity to throw in. And then the death dealer, the person who is pulling the killer and the victim, they get to choose their favorite method of death. And there are ways, however, of us being able to screw with that gameplay by adding in death itself, which means that, there's another method of death pulled, or guardian angel, which completely goes against all of the tropes of a horror movie in which the victim escapes. So you can actually steal around from someone. And there will continue to be in all of the expansion packs, not only methods of death and also killers and victims, but also one way in which the gameplay will alter or change slightly. So if you do go out and get the extra set and have the Folklore, you'll not only get the base set, but you'll also get the set that adds an additional rule or additional chapter to the game on top of it.
Are you guys, when the Kickstarter is done and you guys are in full just pumping them out production mode, are you guys gonna have just kind of a store online where all those expansion packs will be available in the future? Are you going to do a major drop, like I'm thinking just like a year or something, and do like a Kickstarter build up for, hey, we're trying to give you now, expansion packs A, B, C, and D all at this time? Like, what is your guys' plan for releasing those expansion packs?
Take it one step at a time. We certainly have a business plan that goes out, a good year or two, and different steps that we can take, along the way. But we got to kind of accomplish the first step and to get to the next one. Our first initial thing is to get this game created and made really well. Actually, our manufacturer is Ad Magic. They've done games like Exploding Kittens and Card Humanity, some pretty big card decks that are out there now. We've got a fulfillment house that works with a lot of pro companies. So, our first focus will be manufacturing and getting this first game out in a really solid way. We want to give you something that you get and you're like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. You know what I mean? Yeah. You can see from the art and everything that it really is going to be a standout kind of game. And that's what we want to do. Standout box, standout deck. We want to get you the game as quickly as possible. And that's going to be our first focus. After that point, obviously, we're going to work toward larger distribution and things like that. And, depending on what kind of distributors we get and whatnot, that'll determine when we come out with those expansion packs and where. Certainly when the Kickstarter is done, the very first step is we're going to have you'll be able to go to our website and pre-order the game still. And so you'll be able to put your pre-orders in for that. You won't be able to get those Kickstarter exclusives, by the way. I just want to throw that out. There's an exclusive box that you only can get from Kickstarter, a collectible pin that Jacob made that is incredible that you'll be able to get from Kickstarter. And, and a few other extras, a body bag, carrying case, things like that. But the game itself will be able to still be pre-ordered and purchased from our website, and as well as the expansion pack. And then we'll probably start putting expansion packs out on there, but then it really has to do with who we settle on for distribution and how far that reach goes.
Yeah, the names that you mentioned, the manufacturer that you guys are going with, like you mentioned Cards Against Humanity. I mean, that's that's the big dog in the yard. So to expect something, similar, if not, just as, identical as far as quality in your hand, box, card, total package. I mean, you couldn't ask for a whole lot more out of a card tabletop game than that, for sure. So, when you guys go and you pledge and you help out the brand that you're helping out, that you're not, getting something that's, theoretically going to be good. This is something that is going to be really cool when it comes out. So, your money is definitely going towards something that you're going to be really stoked about when you have it in your hand.
Well, and the standout aspect of the game is, we could talk about gameplay and we could talk about, the fact that we're in love with the idea of how people are going to, attach themselves to this. But the artwork that is instrumental in bringing this game to life is something that is truly special. And to be able to have Ad Magic in the manufacturing team and the quality that they provide showcase Jacob's art is really going to be something that is going to be wonderful for people to flip through. I mean, I don't know if I was alone in this, but as a kid, you would play games that had artwork that was wonderful to look at, and you would end up flipping through. I remember like playing D&D growing up. I would go through the monster manuals just to look at the artwork and just to see the pictures that they drew, because it was just fascinating to watch and just to look at all of the artistry. And then I'd go back and I'd play the game. But I think people are going to flip through the decks to look at the killers and the victims previous to playing, just to give the idea. I would hope that they would hold off and not spoil it for themselves, but people are going to look instantly in those decks and start flipping through and start laughing.
For sure.
Absolutely, and all it takes is going to the Kickstarter page and looking at the art to see how special it is and how talented Jacob really is. And we actually have some. Jacob, don't you have a couple? We did some prototypes. These aren't the final cards. We did a few prototypes just to kind of show it in hand, kind of the weight of the card and kind of how it looks. But this is kind of it gives you an idea of how the card's going to look in your hand. And it's pretty awesome. It still has that aesthetic. But yeah, that gives you an idea of kind of how the cards are. But he's doing all sorts of magic things with it. It's excellent. Yeah. Right.
Very cool.
Yeah, it kind of gives you an idea of how this game's going to look. And it's got that, I just love that kind of, that worn look. That there's just nothing like that out there. And it has such a neat feel to it.
Yeah, it's got like a very, like you would go into like a old psychic or some kind of like tarot card. Like these cards have been handled by, they've been handled for a while, but it's like that good kind of worn, not like you found them on the street kind of worn. It's like a practical use kind of a worn. They look very cool.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely wanted to have them feel like they had been through hell.
Box of this card box set right next to Gizmo in that old curiosity shop for about 50 years.
Yeah, totally. For sure.
That's really the feel that we're going for. So, I mean, it's great that that's something that you verbalize as soon as you see it, because that's it right there. It's that idea that these cards have been worn because of out of use. You know what I mean? And it really gives that horror feel, that kind of feel that a horror movie or something like that you would get from. So, that's what we love.
No, yeah, Patrick, I think nailed it. Like right next to Gizmo, that kind of a store is where you would find that. That's totally it.
Or to put it in our own vein, it's in the basement with the rest of the stuff in Cabin in the Woods.
For sure.
This is the box you don't want to open. Like they're taking bets, and at the bottom of the bet pile, right next to Merman is
the
horror. It's like no, don't open the box.
Don't open the horror. Yeah, that's awesome.
Jacob, I gotta ask, because in the big scheme of things, there's only a tiny fraction of people who get to do the art that you get to do. And then out of that tiny fraction of people, there is you who can say that they got to do this super rad art project with two of the creators behind Halloween Horror Nights. I got to ask you, coming into it, what was that like? Did you know these guys, for a while? Were you, my other question on top of that, to go back even farther, growing up, had you ever gone to Halloween Horror Nights as a fan, and then, fast forward and now you're buddies with Nate and Patrick, and you're like, that's pretty cool. They are doing the behind the scenes creation of this event. That's super rad. Fast forward even farther. Well, that's freaking awesome. Now I'm partners with them and we're doing this super cool freaking card game. Like, that's totally, like, at least for me, that's like a total, you get to work with like the guy from, one of the guys from Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and you get to work with like, it would be like Patrick or, John Murdy or, the modern, Walt Disney type of a thing where, you get to do like both kinds of entertainment, and now you're getting to produce this game. What has the ride, so to speak, been like for you, man?
A long one. It's been a really long ride. No, I've known Nate longer than I've known Patrick. Nate and I go back about 10 years now. We both performed in the same show at Universal. And I think I met Patrick when I started doing. I've done work for Halloween Horror Nights, but I'm buried so far back in the scene that no one knows the work I've done. I've done everything. I've worked for Halloween. I've worked for art and design for 5 years, and I have sat back in those offices. And sorry, my wife just texted me. And I've sat back in those offices, working behind the scenes, behind people like Patrick and Nate, doing things like poster designs for the event, or I've done the front of a couple of houses. I did front of the Chance house one year. I did the front of the what was the I'm trying to think of what it was called, but it was one of the blacklight houses. It was a comic book cover. It was Alice in Wonderland.
Alice in Wonderland in 3D.
Oh, the Asylum in Wonderland. Yeah,
Asylum in Wonderland. Yeah. I did the front of that house.
Right on.
So they would just call me in once a year if they needed some illustration work, and I would do that. And so yeah, I've known these guys for a little while, and it doesn't change anything. I love working with them. Absolutely, like this is like a dream team. It's absolutely great. I mean, we're doing what we love on our own terms, creating something that we're passionate about. We all come from the same. We all come from the same department and cut from the same cloth, loving the same things, and we get the chance to put it out there as a team and hopefully blow it up because we really believe in this. We really love what we're doing, and we really think that if we can get it out there and get enough people to see it, that they're going to love it too. So, yeah.
Right on, man. The affection that you guys, you talk about the game and the amount of affection for the game that comes through when you guys speak about it. I can tell that this is not something that, which I would never expect it to be anyway, but it's not something that should be taken lightly. Just like you guys obviously look like, it's a heart and soul for you, and that definitely comes through in the way that you express yourselves towards this thing. So I'm stoked to be able to get to sit down and play it. The fact that you guys are doing it in a physical sense too, I gotta say, because Nate has the idea of being able to play it inline at a Halloween Horror Nights event, which is definitely worth its weight in gold in some cases, especially in the sense of and it's definitely not a gripe. It's just the reality of the situation. When the night is almost spent and you've used up your express passes, it's too early to go home, but it's not looking like you're going to get 2 in. So you got to pick one house, and you're just kind of sitting there for that last hour of HHN, because it's like an hour wait, and you got something that you got to try to do to just stay awake for one more hour. We gotta last to open the phone up and to get to play the Oh My Horror mobile app game. That'll definitely power you through that last hour without question. But the fact that you guys did it in physical form first, I think is pretty dope, because it's like reading reading a Kindle is very convenient, and you can have 1,000 books on there in the palm of your hand, which is nice in the long-term things. But then there's like some comic books or novels that you're like, I'm glad I'm reading it in the actual physical sense of the book or the comic book. Like, so to be able to have the physical cards too is pretty rad.
Well, I think that
it's funny that you mentioned the book thing, because I'm a reader, and my wife got me a Kindle maybe a decade ago because she thought, hey, this is perfect. You can have all these books. You can get any book you want on there. And I had it for about a month and a half and was like, nah, I still want to buy the books. I like having the book, and I like holding it in my hand, and I like turning the pages. And there's something about it, there's something about having that in the cover and the artwork, and then when I'm done with it, being able to put it in the shelf. And I read that book, and I might go back to it again in a year or something, or or a couple of years. So that's certainly, it's tangible, and that's something that I think is cool about the game, like you say.
I also think that there's something optimistic about it. Not to get too esoterical and too philosophical about it, but there's something optimistic about us doing it as a hard card game, and the reason for it is because we've been so isolated for such a long time. We've been shuttered, we've everybody's retreated, everybody's gone back in for their own safety and things like that. But as things start to loosen up, and as we move beyond, the current shit show that we're dealing with, people are going to want to get back together again. People are going to want that communal, that opportunity to be with their friends. And yeah, the pre-orders are happening here in December. We're going to ship the game in June. Like, that's a lot of time between now and then for people to feel comfortable expanding their bubbles and going back into the social world and actually speaking to each other face to face, for God's sakes. That's something, and that's something that we're really looking forward to. And we think that people are going to be really looking forward to doing it with this game. That opportunity to be able to laugh and share a drink, but not via a virtual happy hour, an actual happy hour where they can actually go and hang out with their friends and have fun.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I would say that, June is I would say hopefully way before June we can look optimistically about it. But the game coming out in June is definitely the best time to play it, because I don't know, June to me seems like that's like the beginning of the countdown to scary movie season. That's like when you watch the Jaws movies, or even that's like the end of E.T. season, the beginning of Jaws season. And you're starting to move into the horror movies to count down into the haunt season. That is the back half of September and then all of October. My God, now even the first part of November. The Halloween season, it becomes more and more, especially in Florida. In fact, the Halloween Horror Nights, the 30 that became Halloween Horror Nights, light or 29.5 and stuff. The fact that started in September 10th or what it was, that is crazy. I can remember having to wait until the first weekend of October for Halloween Horror Nights and being like, man, we just got to power through September, and then it's finally freaking time to go to Halloween Horror Nights. Now all you got to do is make it through summer, and you're almost there. Conveniences, talk about first world problems, the wait for Halloween Horror Nights. But
well, that's the nice thing about the game, right? You get your horror fix right up, mainline it. Just
that's it, man.
Yeah, you back it in Kickstarter, and then you can play the game whenever you feel like it. And what's great about the function of the game is that we've specifically left it open for the amount of players that want to take part. So it can be a huge party of people, or it can be a very intimate gathering of people that you've been locked inside with for ages. It gives you an opportunity to murder people without actually taking it upon yourself to do that.
Murder people right in the comfort of your own home.
That's right.
You don't have to go anywhere for murder.
Okay, I gotta ask you guys before we let you go. I've asked everybody who comes on the podcast this same question, some form or reason, and it's the medium in which they create, whether it be movies or books or theme park or whatever. So just for the sake of because I really want to hear what name Patrick say, Jacob, you got to play along by force, man. You guys have the opportunity to build your own, no budget, no no's, whatever you want goes. Haunted house. You can do whatever you want. Soundstage, outdoor, ride based off of it, however crazy you want to make the thing, you get to make it. What would you base that attraction /house around? Would you want to do something completely just like off the wall? Or would you want to do a take? Like, I know, Patrick, like your take on Two Fairies, like that's so, my mind would have never have looked at a Two Fairy the way that I looked at those Two Fairies this year. But now when you say the word Two Fairy, all I see is the Two Fairies that were in that haunted house. And I don't know if that's a combination of going alone or just the fact that they're so uniquely like, of course, that's what a Two Fairy would look like. In the perfect horror movie, that's what a Two Fairy would look like. Who cares? Like, to put them in a normal like human Two Fairy, like that's boring. Get out of here. The fact that you have like these like insectoid eyes attached to these big like gnarly looking teeth, and then like that whole process, would you want to take like Little Red or some kind of fable like that and do that kind of a spin to it? I know you've done, the Scary Tales thing at Halloween Horror Nights before, but would it be something like that, or would you go even like more unique, original, never been done before? Nate, same question to you. Jacob, you as a fan, is there something that you would just be like, holy crap, like this is the perfect haunted house? I'm curious, like, what would you want to see?
Who are we starting with?
Patrick, you want
to? During my time with Universal, I had the great fortune of being able to dabble in not only a lot of stories that I grew up watching, whether it would be The Thing or The Shining or Exorcist or Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th or any of the horror movies that made me. Mm-hmm. But also getting the opportunity to be able to do so much original storytelling. It was never a question for us of, and I appreciate your question, but it was never a question of us going, what would we do if we had no budget? Mm-hmm. It was always a matter of what story do we want to tell next? Because, yeah, granted, Universal and NBC Universal and Comcast, they've got big money. There is quite a bit of money, but the money never goes as far as you think it does. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't solve all the problems. And so the trick to finding out what makes a really great haunted experience, I think, is going back to that three-legged stool of story, character, and environment. Mm-hmm. If you've got a compelling story, and it doesn't necessarily need to be a hard, trashy, like over-the-top gore fest, it can be something sympathetic or even tragic about the characters. You need a compelling character with either makeup or a mask design that is compelling to look at, or a group of aggressors and the storyline behind them and what makes them tick. And then an environment that invites people in, whether it's highly relatable, like a mid-century, regular small town Americana, or is it, uber futuristic, or is it Old West, or whatever it is, has to immediately click and resonate with the audience. I don't know about where I would go next, because that's not where I'm at right now. I have stories in my head, and like Nate, you never stop creating the stories that flash inside your head. And I've got a whole, laundry list of tales that I still want to tell. But I think what I'm focused on right now is just doing the best absolute card game that I possibly can for the people, with the same dedication and story writing principles that I would normally set forth for a haunted house or a short story or a mobile app game or the VR experience like the repository or any of the other things that I've done in my history, and put it towards the gameplay and making it as enjoyable for them as possible. And if we've done our job correctly, when they open that box and they start to play, they're going to feel the exact same way that they normally would have, in a different light, but the exact same way that they would feel going to one of those experiences.
Right on.
Absolutely.
Nate, how about you?
Yeah, so I and this is relatable to the game as well, but I was always fond of telling my own story or telling our own story. I love the tropes. I love all the stuff we grew up with. But if you think about some of the greatest horror films, they've been around for so long, so that seems like so commonplace. But they were brand new. When they came out, that was a brand new concept. Nobody had ever thought about that particular creature or that particular killer ever, up until that point. And I love the idea of creating in a genre that has been around for as long as it has, and just hundreds of thousands of different ways that people have told these horrific stories. I love the idea of coming upon something completely new or something completely off or crazy that somebody would have never thought of. You know what I mean? So I was always fond of the original things that we were able to create. And I always kind of, had an affinity for those. And it's the same with the game. You're going to see all of those different tropes and stuff because we love them and they're fun and they're going to be in the game. But there's going to be some game cards that you're like, how in the hell did they think of this crazy shit? You know what I mean? And that is what really gets me going. That's what I love to collaborate on, is like, let's sit here and think of what nobody has seen before. And if they've seen it before, let's think of it in a completely different way than they've seen it, And that's really what gets me going. So if I had a killer budget, and I could blow it out, however I wanted, I would probably create an entire experience again that starts with a story, just like Patrick was saying, a story that nobody's heard or seen anything like, and then I would grow a pretty kick-ass experience out of that. What about you, Jacob?
What about me? What are we talking about?
What about Jacob?
What about Bob? What about that guy?
If you, Jacob, were gonna go through a haunted house, would you want to see one based off of a certain horror film that, to your knowledge, has never been done before, or would you want to see one that's like a completely original concept?
It's hard to decide. I love the original houses, but even in the original houses, there's a sense of reinvention, and I live for reinvention. I love taking something old and making it new again, which I think I've done in the artwork for this game as well. Taking a style that's already existed and then putting a new twist on it and bringing something new to it. But with old houses, if we're talking haunted houses, man, I love anything Victorian. And if you can find me a Victorian haunted house and you can spin a new tale on it, I am all yours. I will live in that house. I absolutely love it. Like when Del Toro came out with Crimson Peak, I lost it. Like, that was, he did something. He took something that had existed. He took this Gothic love story and he took this trope of this haunted house and he put a new twist on it and he made something brilliant. I love it when creators can do that. And even when we're talking about originality, creativity and originality, it's the amalgamation of something that's already existed and creating something new out of it. So even with original houses, they're building off something that already existed, because you have to give people something that's familiar and something that they can resonate with. And I think we're trying to do that here too. This with the gameplay is something that's existed for a while now. But I think we've done a really good job in turning it into something that you haven't seen before. You've played apples to apples against Cards Against Humanity, but you haven't seen killer cards and you haven't seen illustrations on every card that help bring it to life.
You guys are the only horror movie, character, horror genre in this playing style that I'm aware of.
As far as I'm aware of too. So yeah, we
found that out pretty quick when we opened the Kickstarter and we put in the Horror, or a horror card game. We're the first thing that pops up. There's not really a lot of that kind of thing. So I mean, it's going to be unique, and it's exciting, and it's going to be all the things that are familiar and warm to people with a new twist that they might not have thought of or seen before. And it's going to be kind of the amalgamation of both. And we're excited about it. It's really turning into something pretty awesome.
Yeah, we just hope everybody shows up at the Kickstarter, backs us, and then we're off to the races to make this game a reality so that everybody can enjoy themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Go to Kickstarter, search Oh My Horror card game. You guys can also find Oh My Horror on Twitter.
Oh the horror.
Oh the Horror. Search Oh the Horror on Kickstarter and Oh the Horror on Twitter, and you will see the Oh the Horror logo, and you can also see some of the cards that were mentioned in the interview. They're posting the artwork as we get closer and closer as the Kickstarter kicks off Steam. I can imagine we'll get more and more looks inside of the game as we get closer to June next year. But already you're starting to get a sneak peek at some of the cool characters as drawn by Jacob, created by Patrick and Nate. But gentlemen, thank you very much for taking the time. It's been awesome listening to you guys discuss haunted houses in real life, discuss building original haunts based off of the characters of your guys' game. We're stoked to check it out next year. We hope we get to see tons and tons of expansion packs and Gorgor happens very, very soon. And yeah, man, search Oh the Horror and support these guys. We look forward to it. Guys, thank you very, very much.
Thanks, Jimmy. Have a great night, man.
Thanks, man.